Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Beer the Blather 223. Morbidly insane. Let me see what we mean by this. Without leadership and having surrendered to the politically correct mob, there is no aspect of our lives that is not upended in a deranged and ridiculous way. The most beautiful woman in Maryland is a dude. The most beautiful woman in Alabama is a poor, morbidly obese gal more in need of medical attention than encouragement. But for the bourgeoisie, the fact that they are lionizing sickness and guaranteeing for these two characters a short and miserable life, it matters not. After the pictures and self-congratulations, the fate of their fools is inconsequential. The same thing happens in geopolitics. Scandalized nincompoops decry the fact that, oh my God, NATO may be drawing plans for the eventuality of a grand war in Russia. No shit. And it may include US troops. Perish the thought. We don't have to read the plans to know that they would include troops from nearly every NATO member. Duh. Incidentally, should planners in NATO not consider this possibility, they should be fired for dereliction of duty. The same thing applies to military planners from the US to Japan, Philippines, and Taiwan, if they are not, right now, planning for the eventuality of a China attack on Taiwan. You know, the one the idiot-in-chief just seems to have green-lighted due to his immeasurable imbecility. In Normandy, where a moron desperately looking for a chair plagiarizes Ronald Reagan without a clue as to what he's saying, and as Israel rescues hostages held by Hamas in, surprise, a civilian area, a chorus of critics decries the death of their captors. And lovers of terrorists in Washington, D.C. proceed with the destruction of monuments while the police looks on because, you know, insurrection is in the eye of the beholder. Up is down, male is female, right is wrong, protest is insurrection, insurrection is protest, words kill, terrorists are freedom fighters, and justice is passé. The morbid obesity of Democrat socialist brains have taken over and imposed the insanity as the new normal. Can't wait for the pendulum to swing back. In November, vote the insanity out. And this is Saul Montes Bradley, the largest human repository of useless information from Virginia, here with my very good friend, Thomas Victor, the only living expert in World War I flamethrowers and a guy with unlimited patience, putting up with the antics of California and his Norteño music neighbors in ways that most of us wouldn't suffer for 10 seconds. Thomas, your resilience amazes us all. How are you doing tonight?
Well, I'm good. California lost another franchise today. This is a big pizza place. So okay, my screen went black. I'm getting a warning saying having trouble connecting. So hope everybody can hear me.
So far, so good.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'll just keep talking, even into the black hole that sometimes appears. But California is.
You mean to tell me that in California, not even the internet is working anymore?
I can't think of anything that is working. But the Democrats, Californians in particular, and Democrats in general, are pushing harder with everything they're doing. You know, we're going to talk about Miss America and everything. A famous she's called a hip hop model, and that means she appears in, you know, rap videos and everything. And she's come out for Trump. And what happened was the New York trial that convinced her to actually do her own research on Trump, and then the Democratic Party. And now she's not only in favor of supporting Trump, she's supporting conservatives. And they were asking her why, and she said because the Democratic Party is anti-women. And she was pointing to, you know, the obesity acceptance movement that's causing young women to die far more than it's causing young men to die, and the allowing men to enter every possible space that was once reserved for women. And, you know, all these people criticizing her, they can't actually rebut what she's saying. You know,
we can probably a little bit later, when we are out of YouBoob. By the way, I didn't say this. We're doing this in Quod Verum TV's own channel in Odyssey, YouBoob, and 3 timelines in Twitter, mine, Quod Verum's, and Thomas, who's decided to hijack his own account so we can show this video. And we're going to leave YouBoob a little bit earlier than usual because we have videos that we want to share with you. But these idiots have never heard of fair use. So no. we can't show it there, screw them.
Well, see, what's interesting is that every time somebody flags a video claiming copyright violations, when they do that in bad notice or in bad faith, they're breaking the law. And of course, YouTube doesn't. I mean, nobody cares right now. We're living. I can't remember where it was. Somewhere in a democratic state, citizens have formed an armed volunteer unit, and it's in a completely black neighborhood, and they did so at the behest of a local pastor. And these are all people with concealed carry permits, and they're basically forming a citizens patrol that they patrol at night. And the mayor is opposed, and he says that they should be taking the time to heal rather than to be walking around with guns. And when you think about it, what he's telling them, he said, do the painful work of healing. So what he's telling them is that the criminals will continue killing your loved ones. The pastor called for this after 2 of his congregants were shot dead during robberies outside the church. And so the mayor is telling them, just heal and don't defend yourselves. So this is the first time I've actually heard an elected Democratic official say, shut up, sit down, and take it. Because that's what he's saying. You know,
he might as well say
you should be doing you should be doing the painful work of healing. Well, okay, you can actually defend yourself and heal at the same time. And I would argue that defending yourself is a form of healing. It
starts the healing process right off the bat.
Yeah. So, as predicted, the Democrats are going to, they are currently going even further into the madness that is bringing them catastrophe. And, you know, Trump raised more in 48 hours than he raised during his entire 2016 campaign. He spent $330 million in 2016, and in the 48 hours after his conviction in New York, he raised $400 million, and there are rumblings that it's actually $700 million. I don't know, but
I
think
don't
about
know. The same way that the owner of the Sands dropped $100 million check. I don't know what he's getting in the background. But either way, 52 million were raised in small donations through the website. $5 and $10 donations.
Over a third, actually, it's up to 40% of their donors now are first-time Trump donors. So, okay, just before we sort of move along, in case people don't know, the judge in the Trump trial, he has yet to sentence Trump. He's told Trump's lawyers that there was a case of juror misconduct, in that a person claiming to be a cousin of one of the jurors posted on Facebook that it was going to be a conviction, that they were going to convict Trump. And that is juror misconduct, and it can be grounds for a mistrial if the defense so asks for it. So
yes, and if they can prove that there is indeed a connection between this asshat and a juror, he claims a cousin of his was a juror and told him they were going to convict. If he's making it up, there is no misconduct. If he's not making it up, it's game over.
Well, if I were the judge, and I think he still might do this, he would just take it all into his own hands and declare a mistrial now, because otherwise he's going to be, he doesn't want to be the judge that sentences Trump to prison, because the RNC had already said that they were planning on nominating Trump while he was in prison, and they were going to have, a Zoom video showing him in prison, which would be an absolute debacle for the Democrats. I know that the judge...
These fucking idiots are turning Trump into Nelson Mandela.
Or Dreyfus in France.
Or Dreyfus. Well, Dreyfus didn't end up so well. But yeah, and by the way, I'm waiting for somebody to do an American version of Emile Zola's J'accuse.
Yeah.
There's plenty of powder for that one.
Well, I mean, this is what's the final bit of icing on the cake of insanity is that now the Democrats are going full out in warning us that if Trump is elected, he's going to do everything that the Democrats are doing now.
Yes.
So they're all saying he's gonna weaponize the Department of Justice, and apparently their faith in their gaslighting abilities, they think that nobody's caught on to what's happening right now to Trump.
Right.
And so all their warnings are about everything that they have already done to Trump. And it's the perfect chef's kiss on top of the cake of madness that the Democrats have baked for themselves. Well, for us, yes. They baked for the country.
Oh, for us, they're baking it for mankind. By the way, yep. Michael here is saying that WinRed in the website, collecting donations for the Trump campaign, they recommended $20.24, 2024, as the recommended donation. Incidentally, why be less? That is the donation I recommend for people liking this. You can do it in the chat. Holy cannoli, 25 just came in, and in the chat, or directly as a donation to the channel or to SQV. Sorry, I have to do that. We have to leave.
Yeah. Okay.
But we were saying these imbeciles are turning Trump into a martyr, which is the last thing you should do with a political adversary. Martyrs win.
Well, see,
every single time.
They can't see that. I saw a Polish movie, and I don't recommend it because it's easily the bleakest movie I've ever watched. But during World War II, there was a Polish army colonel. If you don't know about what happened to Poland, Poland was invaded by the Nazis and the Soviets simultaneously, and the country was occupied by the Soviets and the Nazis half and half. Then after the war, the Soviets took over the Nazi half. And there was a Polish army colonel who fought for Polish independence in 1920. He was highly decorated. He fought against the Nazis. And then during the war, he volunteered to go into Auschwitz in order to collect intelligence to send the Allies. And he actually escaped from Auschwitz. And after the war, the newly installed Soviet government in Poland arrested him, tortured the absolute hell out of him, and then executed him. And it was only after the fall of the Soviet Union that we learned about this man who'd been erased from history. And he told his wife that Auschwitz was a picnic compared to the prison he was in at that time. And it was remarkable to me to watch this horribly depressing movie, because everything that the Soviet Poles were doing and saying is stuff that's happening in the United States today, without the beatings with truncheons, without the pulling out of fingernails, and without the shot in the back of the head. But everything else, they ended up forging his own confession because he didn't confess. And they created what was called a black resume, where they created a fake resume and they told endless lies about this guy. And I forced myself to watch the movie, as horrifying as it is. It's a great movie, but it's just so bleak that I can't recommend it. And he wasn't even Jewish. He did this as a patriotic Pole.
As a patriotic Pole, yes.
Exactly. And I was floored, because everything done in this movie is what's happening in this country today.
Well,
conservatives.
Thomas, you and I have been calling Democrat DAs Lavrenti Beria for a number of years now. This is not something that just came up to us today. This is something that we saw 5-6 years ago, when that idiot in New York was campaigning on the premise that if elected, I'm going to go after Trump.
Also the Attorney General of New York State.
Yes. And you're going to go after Trump. You're going to start an investigation of a person, not a crime. And you're going to investigate that person until you can find or concoct a crime. This is Soviet-style prosecution.
Well,
Beria excelled at it, and we have plenty of areas in the U.S. today.
It's a direct quote. Lavrenti Beria, who was Stalin's secret police leader, he said, "Show me the man, and I'll find you the crime."
Yes.
So,
and we're doing it here. We're doing it with special counsels, with district attorneys, with attorney generals, and it is a violation of the Fourth Amendment. The Sixth Amendment is a violation. It constitutes a bill of attainder, which is specifically verboten.
Well,
and yet we do it anyway.
Americans believe that this couldn't happen here. It is happening, and one of the things Trump is doing now is he's giving long form interviews that are very casual. He did one with Dr. Phil, and in a separate show following this interview with Dr. Phil. Yes, I mean, Dr. Phil is what you would call an establishment conservative, but he's now all in for Trump. And what was depressing to me was that his audience were saying that now they were very angry at the media for painting Trump in a light that he obviously wasn't. And it's like, but that, and okay, I'm talking into a dark hole. I hope everybody can hear me.
Yeah, there was a little hesitation.
But I didn't know anything about. Okay, I didn't know anything about Trump, and I did all my own research on Trump. I didn't let either side of the press influence me in my opinion of Trump. So to hear these Americans, a whole theater full of Americans saying, I had the completely wrong idea about Trump, and I blame the media. Well, I'm sorry, I blame those people. I blame those people. They did no research. They let the likes of CNN and ABC and MSNBC tell them all about Trump, and they voted accordingly. And that's how you vote away your rights. When you believe that the press is telling you the truth, and in reality, the press are working for a political party and then for the government, you will vote away your rights and your freedom, and it'll be all your fault. This is why I don't feel any sympathy for people who are misled. The real Trump was not a secret. You had all the ability in the world of finding out about the real Trump. So, it was your fault. It wasn't the fault of the media. Media is the scorpion that will sting you no matter what, because that's what scorpions do. And the media will lie about anybody who opposes their party, their political ideology, rather.
Or doesn't pay enough.
People are now learning about the real Trump almost 10 years after he went into politics. And, better late than never, but it still, in my mind, doesn't absolve them of the responsibility for voting in all the people who were doing these things.
Absolutely.
Okay, voting in.
Absolutely. Let me refer to the chat for 1 second and then back to this. I was saying, when the press wants to talk about pollution, they show cooling towers. And of course, what comes out of a cooling tower is steam, you morons, not pollution. But and people get this idea, of plumes of pollution going into the sky, and we're talking about water steam. You're absolutely correct, Thomas. I have zero sympathy for these people as well. It is our duty as citizens to be informed. We're not meant to vote in Three Stooges fashion. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo, I'll take this one over here. We're supposed to read, investigate, know. And if we really have no idea, have the decency to stay home. That's not the way elections are run in this country anymore. We have scores of ignoramuses.
There's no excuse for not knowing. There's no excuse for not knowing.
Well, let's say that you're too busy in the farm and you could care less. Okay, then stay home.
Well, I mean, you should care, because if they can do it to a former president and a candidate for the presidency again, then they've cleared away all barriers. They can do it to anybody. I saw a clip. I didn't watch it because I didn't want to hear it, but it was Morgan Freeman telling the ladies on The View where to stick it about racism. Well, he was on The View to talk about how the planet had faced multiple extinction level events, and now we're facing another one in the form of climate change. And it's like, I didn't wait around to hear him tell the ladies of The View, about playing the race card. I just switched it because I don't want to hear anybody telling me that we're facing an extinction level event. I have a good memory. I remember Al Gore telling us we had 8 years left, and that was what?
20 years ago?
20 years ago. I watched.
But the Secretary General of the UN just told us that of the limits that were so wisely set in the Paris Agreement, there's only 5 years left and only 1 year to right the ship, or we're all gonna die. God.
You can't do anything in a year. It's impossible.
Not only it's impossible, but Greta Thunberg has the jolly good excuse of being retarded. What does this idiot? What is this idiot's excuse?
Well, what is Al Gore's excuse? I watched over
Money, greed.
As he was up on the screen going every year, and it's like, well, if you're so terrified, I remember they caught him eating some kind of endangered fish, and it's like, see, this is very typical. You're not happy with a regular fish. You have to eat an endangered fish, and it's just like
that's it. I'm having turtle soup tonight.
Well, I don't even. I mean, the whole thing is so stupid. There's nothing we can do if we're headed for an extinction level event. We can't turn it around because it's not our fault. We didn't cause it, but it's not even, none of it's even real. I mean, when you start learning that they put the temperature gauges as close as they can to heat sources, and then they say
to air conditioner exhausts,
yeah,
in parking lots. Come on.
The whole thing is just stupid, and I'm sorry.
And by the way, and even then, even with the sensors right next to the exhaust of AC equipment on top of parking lots by LAX, they still haven't registered any temperature that breaks the records of the 1920s and 30s.
Exactly. I mean, I'm 61, and I've watched as we've gone to warnings about the coming ice age, to the coming heat age, to the coming climate change. I mean, it never happens. None of it is real. It's all about attempting to control people.
Like Kaya says, remember acid rain? We should have no forest. We have the thickest fucking forest in history. The ozone layer had a hole as big as Texas. We were all going to be microwaved to death. No, it didn't happen. Actually, chlorofluorocarbons, naturally occurring, rose, and the damn thing is considerably smaller. Apparently, the Earth has a nostril or an asshole. It breathes or farts into upper space through that hole. We know nothing about it today, and we know about as much as we did 40 years ago. How about the extinction? That one is Al Gore, the extinction of the polar bears. How about the melting of the poles? There is more ice in Antarctica than at any time since we can measure. The whole thing is bullshit. And there is a new piece of bullshit every day.
Well, I saw, I had never seen the movie The Matrix from 1999. I'd never actually seen it because
I have.
The raving about it off the charts, and I'd never seen it. So I watched it recently, and what struck me was for people who don't know, The Matrix is a massive mass hallucinations created. It's a fake reality created by our overlords to make us think we're living a wonderful life when in fact we're all enslaved. And we're in the movie The Matrix, all human beings were curled up in eggs, and they were providing electric power with their body to the machines that ran the whole shebang. And in this Matrix world, they had these autonomous computer programs known as agents. They all look like FBI agents. And there was a scene where one of the agents was speaking to the captured giant brain of the human resistance, a guy named Morpheus. And he said that human beings are the only mammals that destroy all the resources in an area and then have to move on, and that no other mammal does that. They always achieve a balance. Hold on. And that humans are therefore a virus, and they're not actually mammals. That's a fabrication on so many different levels, but it's what people actually believe.
Yeah.
Humans are the only mammals that restore habitats. Ask any African. The most destructive animal you can come across is an elephant. They destroy everything in their path, and they don't give a shit about their environment. This is why elephants have such an enormous territory, is because they wipe out entire areas. They knock down trees. They're indifferent.
You probably remember when elephants were at the brink of extinction, and we were going to run out of elephants. So policies were devised to protect elephants throughout Africa, and the herds began to grow far more than naturally they would have. And that led to desertification of parts of Kenya, because those growing herds of elephants destroyed the jungle. You never heard about that again, did you?
Well, personally, in my own, as a personal preference, I do not approve of trophy hunting. I do understand culling. I understand culling, and I understand hunting for food. I mean, no American has the need to hunt for food, but I do understand if a certain area can only hold, say, 100 elk, and there's 200, then I understand allowing hunters to go in and each bag one elk or something. But the whole notion of the umbrella stand made from the elephant leg and
that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. The same thing of the powder made with the penis of a tiger or whatever. I don't care about that. But this has nothing to do with trophy hunting. This has to do with overprotection that led to desertification. Uh-oh. I think your internet is really acting up. What I'm saying is this has nothing to do with trophy hunting, which I agree with you, but it has everything to do with Fantasia-style sorcerer apprentices sticking their nose where it shouldn't be and allowing herds to lose natural enemies, to be overly protected, leading to desertification of entire areas. They don't know what they're doing. All of these idiots don't have the foggiest idea of the forces they're messing with. If we have whales, it's because of oil. If we didn't have John D. Rockefeller creating a stable form of kerosene that replaced whale oil in lamps, there wouldn't be a single fucking sperm whale left in this world today.
Right, and we're the only animals on Earth that make like heroic efforts to save species, and to absolutely, I mean, leftists excoriate all humankind, and it's a ridiculous thing. It's like saying the United States is a racist country. The United States as a whole was never a racist country, all the way back from the beginning. There were racist elements in the country, just as there are racist elements in other countries. World War II, for example, we were fighting two racist regimes, one in the West and one in the Pacific. And the racist regime in the Pacific were quite open about their racism, and they were stopped. And now the people trying to exert their influence in the Pacific are another group of, it's another racist regime. And there are racist elements, but you cannot claim, I don't claim that all of Japanese people in World War II are racist. It was a racist regime, but there were plenty of Japanese who saved non-Japanese people. Just as in China, there's plenty of Chinese that come to this country and their kids grow up to be Americans and the parents have no problem with it. So you can't say China is a racist country.
No.
But leftists are reductionists. They reduce everything down to the tiniest component level. And then they spew out bumper sticker slogans. And these are the type of people who hated Trump and who are now going, why did I ever hate Trump? And I have to bite my tongue.
Well, if it is any consolation, those who hate Trump hate you and me with equal fervor. Remember the Project 1619 and all that bullshit?
Yeah.
Okay. Article 6 of the Massachusetts Body of Law, which became the Constitution of the Massachusetts Bay Colony, stated there will be no bonds of slavery amongst us, making Massachusetts the first place to abolish slavery in the planet. Why isn't that taught? Why most Americans have not the foggiest idea that the concept of slavery as an evil that should be completely eradicated from our society was born here?
Because, okay, you and I were talking about this last night. There are people in this country, people running this country, who think this is the worst country in human history and needs to be brought down so that more enlightened countries like China can
or Afghanistan,
exactly, can take our place. And
they sure know how to treat women, you know.
Well, I mean, okay, China basically tried to exterminate women under the communists. And then, 40 years later, they went, where are all the women? Holy shit, we need to pay people to breed.
Now they want to steal women from someplace else, or maybe bring them in from Taiwan. You are referring, of course, for those who don't make the connection out there, to the one-child policy, which led, since families could only have one child, and they saw having a girl as a handicap, they couldn't work as hard in the field. They had to pay to marry them away. They aborted whenever the pregnancy was carrying a female. And the end result is that they really fucked up the ratio of men to women from about, 52% women to about 20% women. And all of a sudden,
well, also
better than half the young men in China.
They committed They committed infanticide on a mass level.
Yes.
It wasn't just abortion; it was infanticide.
Yes. So now they have a problem. Fuck them. I don't care. They've overestimated their population. They overestimated their growth. They overestimated everything except their ability to provide low-cost labor. And now they're royally fucked. China is a giant wannabe on its way to becoming fucking Bolivia.
Yeah. No, and it couldn't happen to a more deserving group, a more deserving government. I mean, yes. It's exactly like if you look at what's happening to Russia today, the Russians deserve everything they get. Putin has recruited these old women known as the battle babushkas, and they go out there and they make videos, telling us how great life is in Russia and everything. And somebody leaked footage. I mean, these women have no idea what they're even saying. Some of them didn't even know who Putin is. But they were putting out the propaganda that the U.S. is a ridiculous country because you get to vote. Look how great Russia is, and we've had the same leader for 20 years. And it's like, yeah, look what he's done to your country.
Look like at Russia is indeed.
Well, Russia is such a laughingstock now that all of Europe basically is saying, yeah, we'll send troops if the Ukrainians start losing. We'll send troops. Nobody's afraid of Russia anymore. The Russian bear.
Yeah, and by the way, nobody expects to be forced to send any troops, because as of right now, notice how the press has been quiet recently. The Ukrainians are kicking ass, major time. Vukovar is back in Ukrainian hands. All the so-called gains of the Russian offensive at a cost of somewhere around 600 vehicles, 100 tanks, and thousands of lives have now evaporated.
Well, I saw somebody commenting on the reporting from Ukraine, and I was able to tell who he was talking about without even knowing the reporter's name. He said CNN, and the guy has a British accent. And I said, okay, it's going to be Nick Roberts. And what they did was they spent enough time at the front that they got enough footage of Ukrainian soldiers not smiling and not joking. And then they presented it as if the Ukrainians were on their last legs. And this is what is always done. And it's our press did everything in its power to prop up Vladimir Putin's Russia. And now that they can't do it anymore, they're not really reporting on the Ukraine war. And it makes you wonder, why in the hell was it so?
They're having a sudden outburst of amnesia. And by the way, when you say what they do, remember what our press did in Vietnam?
Yeah, of course.
This is not new.
No.
Some people may be wising up to it now, but for 50, 60 years, they have been systematically undermining the U.S. at home and abroad. If our press were the work of a foreign enemy or a foreign nation, not even an enemy, a foreign nation, it should be considered an act of war.
Well, they have no in World War II, the press lobbied intensively for the right to publish photos of American dead. And I can tell you the first photo of American dead in World War II published. And the rationale was that Americans need to know the price they're paying. And it's like, you think they don't know? Like everybody's drafted. There's so many men who've been drafted that the women are having to take over men's jobs. You think Americans don't know the price we're paying? You think the Gold Star mothers? You think the people who have the maimed soldiers in the hospital? You think they don't know? No. The press just wanted to publish photos of American dead so that they could claim that there's this myth out there that the press was totally pro-war. No, they weren't. When we started the various bombing campaigns, the press was calling it terrorism. I mean, yeah. To this day, the bombing of Dresden is called a bombing that had no purpose except to terrorize the Germans. That's a lie. Dresden was a military hub. It was a military hub.
Major industrial center.
Major industrial center because the industrial components were spread throughout the area. And the press fabricated a story that we just bombed them for the hell of it to inflict terror on them.
Same thing
we didn't do that.
Same thing with Hiroshima and Nagasaki. These were not hippie colonies, assholes.
No, and it also, we dropped leaflets in Japan. We dropped hundreds of thousands, millions of leaflets warning people that a raid is coming. We did that with before every single major raid. And then after Hiroshima, there was a period when we thought, holy shit, they're not going to surrender. We're going to have to, we had 2 complete atomic bombs and one left that we could drop. And so we started dropping leaflets telling people, tell your government you've had enough. And those had an impact. It was the emperor. It was one of they were called the Big Six. Those were the leaders of the Japanese government. And in every meeting, the emperor had always, he had always been present. He had no ability to rule, other than, he gave his tacit approval to everything. And finally, he was asked directly, breaking all protocol, sire, what are your wishes? And he said, I want to end this war. And, he never made his wishes known. And okay, he rationalized it. He said, I was a victim. He wasn't, but he did end the war basically. And
that's why he stayed in power.
Exactly. That was the initial terms were unconditional surrender, and the emperor is thrown off the throne. And it was MacArthur who understood they're never going to go for that. So he said the emperor can stay, but he's basically going to be
figurehead.
He's going to take his marching orders from me. And this is why Japan is a functional democracy today. And but the leaflet campaign had an impact because people were like, you mean our government wants to keep fighting after atomic bombs and every male in my family has been killed and they want to wipe us. They're saying that better 100 million dead than surrender. So So everybody lies about us. They lie about us. They say that, you know, we were racist against the Japanese in the Pacific and we took no prisoners. That's a fabrication. That's a lie.
And as a matter of fact, we treated those prisoners infinitely better than they treated ours.
Well, they fucking sent us to Unit 731 where they dissected our people alive with no anesthesia. We didn't do anything like that. So, and then they go, oh, the Munich, the Nuremberg trials were so illegal. Do you care? I don't care.
No, I think they were a waste of time. I would have shot the motherfuckers without spending a day in court. I do think that the pretense of international law is bullshit. You won. You captured a Nazi general responsible for concentration camps. Put him against the wall and shoot the motherfucker.
Well, see, that's what, you know, we turned various, you know, the Poles got these people, the Slovakians got these people, and they just took them out and hanged them.
Took them out and hanged them. And, you know, I would end with these people the way the partisans ended with Mussolini.
Yeah.
Don't waste societal resources that are needed for reconstruction in a charade so that you can have a good press. Bullshit.
What's really funny is that the same people who bitched about the Nuremberg trials then bitched that we didn't put enough Japanese on trial.
Yeah. No, you never made. Look at the assholes at the UN today. By the way, we are going into the Adult Swim now. We may even have to show some images. So people, in YouTube, right there in the description is the link to come and continue watching the show in Odyssey. All it takes is one click, and you're there. So if you don't want to do it, tough. But we're out of YouTube right now. Bye. And